Onward is a brand new Pixar animated movie directed by Dan Scanlon and featuring the voice talents of Chris Pratt and Tom Holland. The movie follows these two brothers, Ian and Bali, as they go on a quest to bring magic back to this world that has forgotten about it and instead opted for a easier way of life with technology, just making things a whole lot simpler. A little bit like how our world is today. But on top of that, they are also looking to bring back their father, who has been dead for a number of years, back for one day. Whenever Pixar decides to release a movie, I will always be interested in seeing it. Unless it's Cars, I really don't have any interest in that franchise whatsoever. But if it's anything else, especially an original idea like this, then I will be really interested in seeing it and seeing what they have to bring to the table. And I will admit, not every Pixar movie has delivered. There are some that are worse than others, but no matter how good or bad a Pixar movie is, there is no denying you will always get a certain sense of quality in that filmmaking. Even if the movie ends up being Cars 2 or Monsters University, there is always a sense of quality there, even if it maybe isn't up to the standards that they've done in the past. And with Onward, I wouldn't necessarily say this is one of the best Pixar movies out there, but this is still a very strong effort from the company. I mean, first off, I might as well get the obvious out of the way. The animation is really stunning to look at, and it does something that a previous Pixar movie did, but does it a whole lot better than that previous Pixar movie. Now, with this movie, you have very kind of cartoony-looking characters inhabiting an almost realistic-looking world. Now, the last Pixar movie that did that is The Good Dinosaur. And that was one of my main issues with that movie. You had the character design of the dinosaur itself, as well as the few humans in the movie. And the designs of those characters were very cartoony. They were not realistic at all. But they inhabited a world that looked photorealistic, and that juxtaposition between the two was quite jarring for a little bit. I thought the characters were quite good in that movie, but it was that thing of both of those elements battling against each other that didn't quite work for me. You had cartoony looking characters inhabiting a literally photorealistic world, and it didn't quite work, and it didn't mesh together. But with Onward, you kind of have a similar thing going on. These characters that look, a little bit cartoony, inhabiting environments that look, again, very photorealistic. But with this, it works a lot better than it did in The Good Dinosaur, because there are more modern world realistic things that these characters interact with. And to top it all off, these characters are of a human shape anyway, so it doesn't feel as jarring as it does in that movie, because in that movie you literally just have a dinosaur and a small human kid inhabiting this vast landscape that is uninhabited. For the most part, anyway. But with Onward, it's a thriving environment with full of characters, and it feels like an alternate version of our world today. Like they use phones and computers and all that sort of thing that we use today, but they just so happen to be elves and minotaurs and all these fantasy creatures that you've seen over the years. So in that sense, that jarring thing that happened in The Good Dinosaur, it works a lot better here because it's grounded in some sense of a reality that the movie has set up. What I also really liked in this movie as well was the relationship between Ian and Bali. It's something that progresses throughout the movie. It's nothing that you've never seen before. Like, you've seen this kind of thing in a lot of other movies like this, but the way that it's handled here is really, really charming, and honest to God, brought a tear to my eye by the end of the movie. It was really heartwarming, and I liked a lot of the messages that they got across just through these two characters and how they interact over the course of the movie and how they come to certain realizations by the end of the film as well. And I really, really like that about this movie. The messages that it's going for are really heartfelt and really do stick in your heart a lot, and it really is good. And yeah, that whole aspect of the movie is top notch. It's some of Pixar's best in a long time in terms of getting a message across. I really liked what they did there. And like I said, the characters, the two main characters anyway, are really fun to watch. Chris Pratt and Tom Holland supply their voices in the best way possible. There are a few bits, especially near the start of the movie, where all I could hear was Tom Holland's voice and all I could hear was Chris Pratt's voice. But very quickly, you don't see those voices as the people, you see them as the characters. And yeah, very quickly you do acclimatise to that. But that might just be because I'm used to hearing their voices and they don't change their voices up that much. So I suppose that's just a thing that I'm feeling. Now, despite how gorgeous the animation is and how beautiful the central message is and how good the characters are, at the end of the day, this movie is just like any other quest adventure type of movie. The plot is, to an extent, fairly predictable, and I could see where things were going to go along the way. Which is my only real negative with the movie. I could kind of see where it was going to go. Nothing surprised me that much. It did a couple of small things here and there that kind of took me off guard, and I was like, okay, I like what you're doing there. But for the most part, this really doesn't do anything new, and it doesn't really bring anything new to the table in terms of story. But in all fairness, what drives this movie is the two main characters and the connection that they have. So the story, in a sense, takes a backseat, even though it is the main premise of the film. That story does take a little bit of a backseat, so I suppose it isn't as important. But when you do really think about it, the plot really is as simple as it gets, and it doesn't deviate from it in any new or unique ways. It just kind of does the same plot again that you've seen quite a few times before, and doesn't do much to change it up. But like I said, the characters are the main focus, and the story is just there as a catalyst for these characters to grow. In the end, Onward was a perfectly fun and enjoyable movie as I was watching it, but in terms of its story, it doesn't really bring anything new to the table, which is why I'm going to give it a 6.5 out of 10. I would recommend this movie, especially if you are someone that has a family and you want to take your kids to go and see something. This is definitely one that has a message that I think a lot of younger people need to see, because it's a very heartwarming and very effective message that it tries to get across. But yeah, in terms of other stuff though, really could have gone a lot more and could have tried a lot new things, I feel. I feel like it could have tried something a little bit different. So guys, that was my review for Onward. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked the review, then give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Bye.